everyone, and welcome to Your Health in Your Hands. I'm Dr. David Ajibade with the Brain and Body Foundation. Now, it's going on 10 years since we started our work at the foundation, and I really can't believe this. Some of you have been with us right from the very beginning. We started doing the NTA TV show, Your Health in Your Hands. I believe it was 2018. And then it was Mr. Wale Koka, who was the executive director, who took a chance on us and said, well, let's see what you have and how we can and see how the Nigerian population responds to our show. And again, that was, so now going on 7 years now. And we thankfully, because of your patronage and your viewership, we continue to grow from strength to strength. So I would say a big thank you. Now, when we first started the foundation, what we first started doing was taking omega-3s to hospitals like National Hospital, and we would take them to the physiotherapy department, as we call it in Nigeria, and we just give them out to parents of children who had brain damage, either from birth asphyxia, birth trauma, jaundice, insulin, bilirubin, toxicity, and so on. And we just started giving that out because many of these people had nowhere else to go, and we found out that giving simple nutrients could significantly, in some cases, improve the health status. And basically, it grew from there. And then when we saw it was working so well, I would go back and forth from the U.S. from Nigeria to the U.S. and from the U.S. back to Nigeria to get more supplies. And eventually, we started dealing with more things. As you know, we started treating sickle cell patients, and from sickle cell patients to adults with dementia and strokes and so on and so forth. Along the way, we've partnered with several people, and I'm always excited when I see someone who is also doing something similar to what we're doing. In other words, they're in the US or they're in a first world country, developed country, but they are giving back. They are so concerned about what is going on in Nigeria, especially where health is concerned. And so they're giving back and they're partnering, they're using their own resources to bring back. And that on our show today is one of such people. So before we go any further, I want to say welcome to Dr. Oyefeso to the show. Welcome, sir.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here with you. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. I appreciate it. Now, we're going to be talking about maternal and child mortality and the grave statistics that affect Nigeria. But let's know a little bit about you, what you do, your family, and so on.
Yeah, so my name is Olumide Oyefeso. I also go by Richard, depending on the audience. I think Richard works more for my Caucasian audience. Well,
same here. Yeah, I go by David.
Yeah, so I'm a pediatrician, full-bred Nigerian boy, trained in Nigeria, raised in Nigeria, and then I now practice in North America, between US and Canada. But now I spend more time in Canada. And as a pediatrician, I've always had a special predilection and affection for children, and which is what has guided the work that I do. Sometimes I really just feel that children are perhaps the best of humanity. Their innocence, their vulnerability, their candor. But now I've had the privilege and opportunity to work in Nigeria, to save life in Nigeria, under the auspices of our organization called For Bread for Life. And I think at this point, that is perhaps my greatest relevance, even as a clinical person and ultimately as a human being. We're able to do some good work in Nigeria, and I can talk to you more about it. But that is something that we've been at for the neighborhood of 15 years now, working in Nigeria to save lives, impact communities, work with healthcare providers, and do our own part to give back and also to improve the standard of care in Nigeria.
Fantastic, fantastic. And God knows we need all the help we can get in Nigeria. So there's a statistic you shared with me. It is very grave. Nigeria is number 2 in the world for worst cases of maternal and child mortality. Who's number 1, by the way? Is that India?
Yes, it's not, it's actually China. It's actually
China.
And
China.
depending on the resource you look at, sometimes maybe it's down to maybe down to number 3. But for infant mortality has been consistent. We're at number 2. And one can say more China because of their population. Yeah. And also, based on our population, it's actually embarrassingly sad that we're high up there. More than 700 babies die in Nigeria every day. I want everybody to think about that. More than 700 babies die in Nigeria every day. And most of them die at the time of birth. No child should die on their birthday, especially of a preventable cause. And I tell people, 700. And when we say these numbers, it's not a statistic. It is 700 lives that are lost. And if you imagine an airplane, I tell people, imagine an airplane. Imagine 2 Boeing 747 airplanes crashing every day in your country. Now, these babies that die quietly, soundlessly, voicelessly. But a 747 crashing twice every day will catch everybody's attention. And the reality is that this is something that can change. This is something that should change. This is something that must change. And there are reasons why this happens. And if you want, we can get into it. But more importantly, it is something that absolutely should not be ignored.
Absolutely. Yes, we definitely want us to. I definitely would like us to look in some of the most common preventable conditions. I'm just going to throw this in because a lot of the kids, like I said at the beginning, a lot of the kids we treat at the foundation as a result of these mishaps at birth. I remember one particular case in which the parents did everything right. They went for the antenatal, they took all the medications and the supplements. They were consistent when it came to the time of birth. Unfortunately, the nurse at the general hospital who was supposed to take care of the delivery decided it was time to go for her lunch or her whatever break and left her to herself. And she was stuck, I guess, in some, the baby was stuck in the canal for quite a while and eventually caused brain damage. That happens in some cases, unfortunately. But let's talk about some of the top causes of these preventable injuries.
Yeah, that is so important. So one of the biggest things is a condition we call birth asphyxia. And to break it down, because we have a diverse audience and we have varying levels of medical knowledge. So asphyxia, that word is the cessation of breathing. An inability to breathe is what asphyxia is. Someone can't breathe. Children don't breathe when they're in the mother. During pregnancy, a child is not breathing. So for people that are listening, you breathe in order to bring oxygen into your system because your body requires oxygen in order to generate a certain kind of energy empowering your system through a complex process of transformation. But breathing is a part of it, and the oxygen goes into your blood, and that is part of what feeds into your cells. When a child is inside the mom, the child does not need to breathe. The child does not need to breathe because that function is being met by the placenta. The placenta is the connection between the mother and the baby, and the placenta brings in blood that has oxygen in it, which we call oxygenated blood. It brings that into the baby's system. So throughout the period of pregnancy, the baby does not need to breathe. But now, when the baby is born, as soon as the baby is born, we cut the cord, then the baby is supposed to initiate breathing on its own. Unfortunately, for some reasons, some babies are unable to do that on their own. And that is where the trouble starts. A baby that is unable to breathe on its own has to be quickly identified by the healthcare provider. And there are steps the healthcare provider can take. Sometimes it's as simple as the fact that there's liquid in the baby's airway, in the baby's mouth, in the baby's nose. So a provider can suction and remove the liquid from the airway. If that is done, also the baby can be stimulated. Of course, a baby is born, the baby is wet. Just by wiping the baby with a clean cloth properly, the baby can be stimulated and also the baby can start breathing. Sometimes those two steps I described are inadequate and the baby is still not breathing. If that baby is not breathing, then somebody needs to use a bag and a mask. I wish I had one with me here to just quickly show. But the provider now has to use a bag mask device. The mask is put on the baby's face. There's an inflatable bag, and we squeeze the bag to push air into the baby's lungs. So a bag mask device will be used to now push air into the baby's lungs, and the baby will be fine. Now, there is a phenomenon, what we describe as the golden minute. And the premise is that within 1 minute of life, within 60 seconds after a baby is born, the baby should be breathing. If the baby is not breathing on their own, someone should assist the baby to breathe. All of these things I've described, the healthcare provider who is in charge of the care of this baby has to be aware, has to be equipped, has to be informed, has to be skilled, has to be supported in order for that to happen. Unfortunately, in many parts of Nigeria, we have providers, often through no fault of their own, who are inadequately trained, inadequately equipped, and inadequately supported. In addition, more than 60% of our mothers do not even deliver in orthodox healthcare settings. So there are several layers to it. Yeah. The story you mentioned earlier about a nurse who was absent at the time the lady was going to deliver, it's a sad one, an avoidable one. What is more sad is that based on this incident, there should have been an analysis of the sequence of events that led to the demise of that baby, identify the fault lines, and put steps in place so that that does not happen to someone else. This is how systems improve.
Yeah.
But more often than not, we find that we miss out on some of those things. In fairness, I'm sure there are some places that will address that. But more importantly, it should not happen. The reality is that, and I tell everyone, the value of a human life is something divine and something inestimable. And at the same time, we all have the same value as humans. Everybody's life is valuable, equally valuable. So it shouldn't be that I need to be rich in order for my life to count for something. I only need to be human. And what is sad also sometimes is that sometimes if something like that happens to someone important, that we consider important, then you're going to find a different reaction. But ultimately, every life, everywhere that a child is being delivered, The standard of care must be that a skilled provider is present at the birth of every baby, every woman, everywhere. That has to be the standard of care.
That is ideal for sure. Unfortunately, we are so far away from the ideal. One of the things that it's tragic, really. And you're absolutely right. I mean, in other situations, and I'm pretty sure there was no inquiry that was made into what happened in this case. The child survived, but she had severe brain damage. We were able to help her to some degree. But of course, for most of such children, they will never really regain full function or full potential. But to some degree, they can. Would you suggest, for instance, that if someone is about to have a child in a hospital or even at home, that mothers-to-be should purchase or should avail themselves of this equipment they're talking about? Is it something cheap? Is it something that is acquirable by the average person, or are these expensive things?
So it's a good thought. Now, before I address it, the first thing I'll say, as you were speaking earlier, you mentioned about this child that has experienced birth trauma. And as you were speaking, a thought came to mind. So many organizations work in silos. And I smile at that sometimes. Also, sometimes I feel it's sad in the sense that the problems are gargantuan in nature. The problems are huge. That for you to make a significant impact, we have to break down the silos and for organizations to work together and find areas of synergy for much needed collaboration, because no one can do it alone. And our organization for Bread for Life, that is what we push for. Not only do we do our own programs, we're very intentional to look out for allied organizations that we're able to work with and support. And I'll talk to that later, because it is essential. It is absolutely essential for people to work together. The days of one-man show are gone. We have to wake up. Any entity, any organization that is not sensitive to collaboration and synergy is unimpressive to us because of the nature of the problem. Because you have to decide, are you seeking glory or are you seeking impact? Someone said that we can achieve so much if we don't care who gets the credit. Now, this girl or this child that suffered this trauma, one of the things that came to mind is that it will be important to tell the story. What is the story? We need to let our people know what the consequences of certain actions can be. While respecting people's privacy, for example, imagine a scenario that we told a story about a child who experienced birth asphyxia and the consequences that have followed, how it has affected her life. And at the same time, we now highlight what could have been done to prevent that travesty, because it is permanent brain damage.
Yeah.
So we need to educate the populace regarding this reality, that this is potentially what can happen. So people start to think. One of the things that is important to me, there was a time I wish I had a magic wand and I could just come, be your town crier, come on radio, come on TV, wherever. And Mama Dorcas, how you doing now? Now, wow, you don't get belly again. Congratulations. So, we thank God, though. Hey, Mama Dorcas, when you go born your baby, so, now for July, we thank God. Everything will go well. Mama Dorcas, who be your doctor? Who be your nurse? Mama Dorcas, where you go born this pikin so? I want born her for so place. Okay, that one good now. Mama Dorcas, for that place, we're not going to look the place where. Then get person wey go fit help you if a problem dey when dem born the pikin. Because Mama Dorcas, sometimes they say this pikin them, when they born them, they know they fit breathe when they born. No. So the person wey dey there, whether na nurse or be doctor, anybody wey dey there, they suppose know wetin they suppose do. Shey you don ask them, shey they know wetin they suppose do. When you don dey go there, who go follow you go? Now your husband go follow you go, because you na go need motor, because in case problem dey, they fit get to carry you go another place. So because if sometimes if woman no fit born her own, then go do operation, they go do cesarean section, no Mama Dorcas. All of these things we get to know. And then, in addition to that, imagine that kind of information that is feeding into the populace, that there are certain things they need to look out for regarding where they deliver, how they deliver, and who will be present at the time they deliver, and what are the appropriate conditions for a delivery to happen.
Yeah.
Now, just to deviate briefly, you and I are Yoruba, and Yoruba people say, Eku ewu omo. That greeting I find very profound. Eku ewu omo. The greeting simply implies, essentially, congratulations on surviving the danger of childbirth. Meaning that in our environment, we recognize that childbirth can be dangerous. Because we're well aware of that, then it behooves us to put systems in place in order to avert the possibility of danger. Most deliveries can happen naturally without any intervention. But when things change, 2 lives are in danger. How can we sit back comfortably when our country is one of the most dangerous places in the world for the life of a mother and her baby?
Well said, Doc. Well said. That's very well said. And first of all, I have to commend you on your firm grasp of your broken English. I see you have not lost it at all. That's very, very impressive. But number 2, I mean, I am totally in sync, and that's what kept on coming into me when I was dealing with all these parents, mothers, and their children going through these problems. And it's like, there is no amount of money that can compare if you had planned, like what you're saying, knowing exactly where you're going to deliver, maybe having someone, even a nurse or a medical professional, pay to have them come with you and to be on standby in case anything goes wrong, or to even work with the doctors and nurses just in case. I know in some cases they will not allow that, but just having someone on standby, because there is whatever you're going to spend to make that happen is infinitely smaller than what many of these parents have to spend just to take care of a child who has been affected by birth asphyxia, birth trauma, and the others. So that I'm totally in sync with you on that. People, I mean, the best is for the government and private hospitals to do the right thing and have really good practices and make themselves accessible.
Because that's part of what we've been able to prove over the years, that we can train people. You can give them an ambu bag to use. You can connect them with folks in a tertiary hospital or higher center. All of these things can be done. I must speak about jaundice as well really quickly, because when you spoke about that, that's another thing that affects our people. Every child, within 48 hours of life, we should know the risk level for jaundice. It's not going to be a naked eye assessment. There are simple ways to check for jaundice. You can do a blood test. You can even use devices that just test jaundice just based on the child's skin, and they can assess the risk. Once the risk is assessed, it needs to be monitored. If the level is high enough, the child needs effective phototherapy. Because if not, the child will have permanent brain damage from jaundice. This is still happening regularly in Nigeria. All of these things are preventable. And these are the things we're working on. And we hope that we're able to make progress. But we're happy with the progress that we've made. We're happy with the footprints we have on ground. And we know that definitely there'll be opportunities to do more. Our website, if if we want.
Yes, please.
www.4 in figures, breath, BREATH, 4 again in figures, life.org. www.forbreathforlife.org. For breath, BREATH, 4 again, life.org. That's our website. Folks can see what we do. Like I tell people, we are the real deal. And we are grateful for the opportunity to save lives. And thanks again for having me.
Well, thank you, Dr. Oyefeso. We will definitely have you back on so we can discuss some of these things in detail. And folks, please take this website down, look at the website, share it with your healthcare professionals and with others. We cannot continue to live with Nigeria being number 1 or number 2 or number 3. The top 5 is unacceptable, especially with what the new government is trying to do to improve and elevate the standards of medical care in Nigeria. We cannot do that without focusing also on maternal and child health. So it's very, very, very important. So, Doc, thank you so much again for taking your time to speak with us. Like I said, we'll have you back very shortly to discuss this further.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
I appreciate it. All right, folks, be sure to join us next week. And if you want to look at old videos or old episodes, go to our website, brainandbodyfoundation.org, and follow us on social media, Brain and Body Foundation or Dr. David Ajibade. God bless. Take care. Bye.